B2B SaaS, they think they need to reinvent something when actually they have a cow, which is, if they have a really good product, that's their cow. And that needs to be milked, obviously, but not from an engineer perspective, even though the customers might be techie people. They still care about the value of the product. How does it serve me? How does it make me be more efficient? How does it bring more revenue to my company?
You're listening to Content Logistics,
a podcast for B2B marketers where we explore the foundational
and sometimes frustrating elements of content.
We're talking to the experts, learning all their tips and tricks, and sharing them with you.
We don't gatekeep here. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Content Logistics. I'm your host, Dallion, and I'm here with my co-host, Baylee. Today, we have a really exciting guest joining us. Her name is Sofie Lehrmann. She is a brand builder and hands-on marketing advisor with over 14 years of experience building and scaling marketing engines in large corporations, and now she does that with big and small tech startups. She helps tech startups milk their marketing to its fullest without breaking the bank. And she is also a huge advocate for inclusion and diversity. We just had an amazing conversation with her, and I cannot wait for you to hear it.
In this episode, we talk about so many great, insightful topics. Sofie really is an expert, but our main topic centers around market research on the customer. And we draw a lot of insights on her background from a B2C context into the B2B world, and then also how to get buy-in from the C-suite. We know sometimes it can be really hard to get the upper management to buy into certain projects and maybe take the time that's really necessary to do the research. So let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Sofie. We're so happy to have you here. And I think just to get started, we'd love a little bit of your background experience. You have a lot of great experience, and now you're running your own company. So do you mind just giving us a bit of background of how you got started down this path?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I love it. I'm excited about this. So thank you to both of you. So I'm Danish. I grew up in Denmark, and I moved to Paris now more than 15 years ago. And I actually moved to Paris because I wanted to be a musician and a singer. So that's why I moved to Paris, to start recording and collaborate with different artists. So that's the creative side of me. But I had very ambitious parents who wanted me to achieve other things than just, stand on the scene and, sing. So after I graduated, I started in market research. So consumer research, qualitative market research with focus groups. So working with, clients like Chanel, Heineken, and all of those huge brands who always had qualitative interviews with the ideal consumers before launching any new product or any new campaigns. So that's, that was my first experience, and it shaped me for the rest of my career. So I stayed there for, I would say, almost 2 years. And then I went to management consulting. So I worked for one of the big fours for almost 7 years. Great experience as well, and so much the opposite of the startup world. So after 7 years, I joined the startup world, and I haven't left since. And I've taken so much learning with me from those big companies and, this consumer-facing experience with me into B2B and in the startup world. But I have learned so much in the startup world. It's unmatchable what you can learn about yourself, first of all, but also about the discipline. So that's my experience so far. And 8 months ago, I started my own company, and that's been very exciting, challenging as well, but we can get into that as well. So that's me.
I want to hear about your company. I love the name, MilkMoo. And I want to hear from you why you chose that name. I know that it ties into your background and how you help businesses to get that input that they need to create amazing content. So can you tell us about your company and your thought behind milking the cow?
Yes. So thank you for saying that you love the name. I hear it so often. And so for, milking the cow, it's actually an approach that I've been having, I would say, the last 13 years of my career. It's something that I keep saying to teams that I've been working with, teams that I managed or built, or just, with teams. And it's an approach that comes from maximizing what you have available and making the most of it, right?
Yeah.
But you need to have a cow to do that. So in the startups, right, the cow would be the product to start with, right? And then you milk it. Marketing will milk it. We won't be milking all of the technicalities, all the features. We will extract the value from the product, right? So turning all of that into something that makes sense, something that has value for the customer, and something that is more benefit-led than feature-led. So, from a core startup point of view, milking the cow, it's, what's the product, what's the value, and how can we bring it to market? But it's also much more than that. And it's, for example, for thought leaderships, when you have a huge piece of thought leadership that can be market research based, or it can be with point of views, with subject matter experts, for example, then it's grounded in a point of view that your company has, right? And from that, you can milk it. You can milk the cow, across different types of content. So it can be ebooks, it can be guides, it can be interactive PDFs, it can be articles, blog posts, social media content that you then milk across different channels that are relevant to your buyer personas. So that's the approach that I take in marketing, trying to maximize what do we have available, what kind of cow do we need to make now, so we can start milking that cow. So yes, that's where the name came from.
It's so good though. Like you said, the approach is also the name of your business, but the approach to marketing for a B2B SaaS company, for a small startup, I mean, it's so smart. It's the best way to get the most out of what you have. And I love what you were saying that you've seen this model in B2C. And that when you were working for brands like Chanel, that they were doing all this market research, they were interviewing their ideal customer. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how you translated it to B2B? Because this is not new, but I feel like it feels new to B2B.
It does, but it's also because in B2C, consumer is the king. Product is the king in B2B. Huge difference. Or we could say marketing is the king in B2C. Marketing is definitely not the king in B2B. Well, it depends on what
Not yet.
you're in, obviously. So when I worked with bigger brands for market research, their cow were insights around whatever associations a product or a campaign would initiate in the consumer. So being able to encapsulate that, take all of those insights, right, have a pattern, analyze a pattern that they have said, use verbatims and real insights to then go in and create something that is valuable for their ideal consumers, right? So that's how they milk the cow, across different focus groups or different qualitative interviews. And you're so right. It's not something that we take the time to do in B2B SaaS.
But I think you try to get people to take the time to do it, right?
Yes, I do. It's not always easy because, it's busy and people, they like tangible things. They like to say, okay, we have a website now. Okay, we have a campaign now. Okay, we have an article now. They like to touch it. They like to be able to see it.
So good.
Yeah. We can relate to that big time. Like we have so many clients that are like, we just need to pump stuff out, when sometimes we need to take a step back and reevaluate who is your target customer and really get a deeper understanding. Because once you really nail down your base or your strategy, or whatever you want to call it, then pumping out stuff is it's gonna be so much better. But you
Yeah,
gotta
and
slow down
easier.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yes, easier and faster. Plus, I would even say when we milk the cow, it's not to optimize time. It's not to optimize cost. It's to have a red thread across the board. It's to be consistent in the marketplace. It's to have, increase the share of voice with one voice, with that point of view that you have in the market or that specific thing that differentiates you. So I would, milking the cow, yes, it helps with efficiency. Yes, it helps with optimizing costs, but it also helps with having a more consistent and unique positioning in the market.
That's so good. We have to have a cow to milk. That's good. That's my new favorite saying. People are trying to milk the cow without a cow.
Yes, they are. They are. Or then they have a cow, but it just stands on the field. It's not going to market. Not going to market. And it's amazing how much you can do with a cow. How many recipes you can get out of a cow, You can make pancakes, you can make cookies, you can make a festive meal, you can do so many things with it. So and that's the problem too in B2B SaaS. They think they need to reinvent something when actually they have a cow, which is, if they have a really good product, that's their cow. And that needs to be milked, obviously, but not from an engineer perspective, even though the customers might be techie people. They still care about the value of the product. How does it serve me? How does it make me be more efficient? How does it bring more revenue to my company?
Can you share some examples with us of how you do this? And you already spoke to the fact that it can be challenging. Like, how do you get buy-in? How do you get everyone to get on board with this methodology? And then what does it look like to actually get the value out of this for B2B SaaS?
So in my previous roles for B2B SaaS, I was hired as the head of marketing in scrappy startups, right? And they hired me with trust. So it obviously starts with trust, but it doesn't take away that they still want to see the tangible things very, very quickly. So what I normally do is that I always speak the language of the people that I'm discussing this with. So the CEO, for example, who often has an engineer background or product background. So speak their language. And I often compare it to R&D. I understand that you want to see results very quickly. And I understand you want something tangible very quickly. But let's take the example of R&D. You're using 1 year to develop and test and make research around a product or a feature. It's exactly the same in marketing and with branding. We won't be seeing results right away, but if we do the job well, we'll have a perfect product market fit, just as your R&D, is trying to achieve. So most of them, they can relate to that with their background. And I think it's so important for us marketeers in B2B SaaS to try and speak the language of our internal stakeholders and not be, isolated or stubborn with our own marketing jargon. So that usually resonates with people. And then the pragmatic approach comes, but how do we do it, Sofie? We don't have any customers yet, or we don't have too many customers. Right. So in a startup, we did everything wrong to start with because the CEO wanted something very tangible. And I came in and I said, okay, let's do something tangible, but I promise you it will only be short term. So we did it, and so the leads were shit. And and we didn't get the results that we wanted to have. So the way I persuaded the CEO to say, okay, let's use 1 month, to get the nitty-gritty in place, to get the foundation in place. Who's our ideal buyers? What are their pain points? Why would they choose our product over others? What other competitors would they be looking for? and what are the reasons why they wouldn't choose us, and what are the reasons that they would. So we took 1 month out. We still did some campaigns just to be present, but it wasn't a hard push. The hard push was in the background, where we identified the buyer persona in terms of what we thought would be the buyer persona in terms of deal size, in terms of where they were, what kind of titles they had, and also hype around the pain points that they had. And then we went out and we found those different buyer personas on LinkedIn, actually. We made a budget around $2,000, and we wanted to use that for gift cards for Amazon, right? So to pay them, because you can't, oh, hello, can I take you for 1 hour, and you won't be paid anything, but thank you for your insights, bye. So that doesn't work, obviously. So how did we do it? Ideal buyer persona. Then we made a hypothesis. Why would they be choosing us? And we then made around 15 questions. Okay, so it was a combination of the product team and the marketing team that were taking on those qualitative interviews. And then we set up the interviews with those buyer personas using our own network as well, and people would refer us to other people that they knew. Always milk where your cow is in your network to start with, especially if you're a scrappy marketer, right? And then we would, at that time, we didn't have recording systems and so on. We typed everything in.
Wow. You've come a long way.
Yeah, we typed everything in. I also worked in another place where obviously you can record it, with those phone systems that you have, which is much better because then you have a transcript afterwards. So yes, that's the approach that we took. Identified the patterns. 17 out of 25 people said that pricing was a big pain point for them. That's an example, for example. And then we would make actionable recommendations, those insights. How did they fit with our business goals? How would that fit with a better positioning, a clear positioning around what we do? How would that help us build brand trust? How would that help us generate more revenue? So out of those ideal buyer interviews, we were able to do different types of content, ebooks around pricing, for example, and it was crazy, the results, because we came from nothing. And then because we had those insights, we were able to speak the language of our ideal buyer personas. So we had around 150 leads per week.
Whoa.
Yeah, with a 15% conversion rate.
Wow.
So yeah, that was really, really crazy at that time. So that was around late 2019, start 2020. And I have to say that today the market is so oversaturated, right? With ebooks and with all kinds of different lead generation. And so, that's the way that you do it could be optimized today. But the approach to go back to basics doesn't change. It's just the medium, how you're going to communicate, that will change, right? So yes, that's an example. Not sure if that.
Yeah, I love how it went from like a flopped campaign just because you were trying to do what they're asking you to do, and then take a step back and do the work, do the research that needs to happen, and make content that really resonates with your audience. I have one of my clients, they recently pulled a bunch of, they did a similar just client interviews or like potential, like their target market. And reading through that, it helps so much to realize what marketing efforts were already in line with stuff they've been saying and what things we need to tweak along the way, because you don't want to stop your progress just because maybe you like research. I feel like you should continually be doing this.
Yes.
Like you don't want to just stop what you're doing because maybe you don't have the research you want, but it can really help you get back on course or completely change the direction you're going.
Completely. And I would also say, and that's something that's a misconception in marketing today around the ideal customer profile and the ideal buyer persona. Okay. So the ideal customer profile is the one, demographics, the title,
Yeah.
those are the people that we, sell to. It's the what. The how is the buyer persona, is the ideal buyer persona. It's how you sell to them. So it becomes like a backbone for marketing to do better sales, right? As you mentioned with your own experience, Baylee, it's so helpful when you look at it and you're like, okay, well, those are the pain points. Okay, this is how we could make this content better to resonate more with the buyer persona. So yes.
Tell me more. Tell me more, because I work with a lot of clients that come to me and say, here are my personas. And then I do the work to set up the interviews and start interviewing these people. But I often wonder, how do we know we're talking to the right people? So tell me more about what you just said about it's the how.
So it's the how, meaning what are the drivers in the decision-making process, right? It's the drivers around, of course, what keeps me up at night, but also how would I like to be perceived in the company? What do I need to, what tools can I have so it makes me look better and my company, obviously. Well, it's not all of the, how do you call it, the superficial motivations that we might have for targeting a specific customer profile. How do we know if we're talking to the right buyer persona? So I need to have more information in terms of your clients. Do you mean so they already did the market research before? Did they already have ideal buyer persona?
Yeah. They've come to us and said, here are 6 buyer personas.
Okay, that's already too much.
I agree. I agree.
That's already too much. You got to choose one, baby. I'm sorry. You got to choose.
Yes.
You have princesses and princes below, where it's
say more.
That's so crazy. Yes, for sure. It's not the right buyer persona if you have 6. It's not. Those are called influencers to the buyer persona.
There you go.
It's not. So
that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very good point. And thank you for saying it was 6 buyer personas. It's just.
Yeah. Well, so for example, how would you help them narrow it down? Which one of the 6 is it, or is it any of these 6? And I know you don't have the full context on who it is, but I'm just wondering, are you looking at existing customers and saying, okay, of these existing customers, they're ideal because of X, Y, and Z?
That's how I worked before.
Okay.
Yeah. So working on who are our customers, because there are different phases of the startup. So let's say it's in the repeatable sales cycle, right? Where you just need to have more proof points that you can actually make it, right? So you have maybe 5, 10 customers that you start with, and you might have 3 different buyer personas, right? But there will always be one that stands out. They were the champion on the deal, right? They were the one that were closing the quickest. Those are the ones who I would say, depending on the growth stage, would be your ideal buyer persona, right? But also the ones that will be able to unlock other product development or upselling opportunities, I would say. So to give you an example, I worked for a startup where they had 3 buyer personas. I would even say more, but 3 main buyer personas. And I asked them to choose one, and it was impossible. They couldn't. It was they're all important. We all have use cases for them. I was no, the CIO and the CDO and the supply chain officer, they work together, okay? It's in a modern world today, they don't work in silos anymore. So we have to choose one that has, where we can drive a top line messaging to, and then it trickles down to the other ones who can also recognize, okay, this could also benefit us. So I would say, look, at obviously the deal size, how long it took to close that deal, if they were able to, if they're champions on the deal, so pulling people in from the company as well. That's what you want to have out from your maybe 3 or 6 buyer personas. That's your ideal buyer persona, because that will help you give revenue. Obviously, if you're going to launch a new product, your buyer persona might change, and this is where it becomes a bit complicated, especially if you're going to make a product that is really different from what you have done before. And then we're suddenly talking about rebranding, because then it's, there needs to be more work done.
I like what you were saying about you got to pick one, because sometimes my approach is like, okay, you want to target all 3 of these people. Okay, we need a different landing page for all of them, different messaging.
Yes.
Because otherwise you're just going to have really like watered down messaging that resonates with no one. So I love that you got to pick your person, pick who your buyer is. It's going to resonate with them. And I like how you mentioned the trickle down effect. It's also going to hit maybe those other influencers too, but without the watered down just messaging that's trying to hit everyone.
Yes, and I would also add, like, of course, when you choose the buyer persona, of course, look at the competition. What buyer persona do they have?
Yeah.
How can we stand out and not maybe target the same buyer personas, but associated buyer persona, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what, that's something that's in the conversation that you have around picking that buyer persona. Competition, obviously, deal size, how quick you were able to close the deal as well. And of course, the pain points. What are the main pain points that we're solving for this specific buyer? And how does that draw back to our product capabilities? But that's table stake for me.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that you push your clients to pick one. And I need to be better at that. That's my big takeaway from this conversation is I need to push my client who has 6 personas to narrow it down a bit.
Yes, because it's like if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one.
It's so
you
true.
need to niche down, and I worked with a client recently who had a niche, who's in a niche. And it was such a pleasure to work with them. They had 3 buyer personas too, and we had to pick one, which we did fairly quickly. Because I said, look, just as you said, Baylee as well, if you want to have 3 buyer personas, I'm sorry, then we need 3 websites for that. Let's choose one in terms of top line messaging. And then as they go in and discover this product a bit more, and they maybe invite other influencers from the company, like the CTO or the CIO, we will make content specifically for them, but it's not going to be the top line messaging.
Yeah.
So we need to make it more like, it's candy. It's candies from the big lollipop, So yes, it's hard to
enticing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make a choice.
I want to highlight another thing that you said that I really loved, and I feel like this is such valuable advice. This is the nugget that I want like younger marketers who are maybe like a one-man team to take away is I like that you said you learn to speak the language of your CEO, you learn to speak the language of your C-suite and your leadership, and then you learn to speak the language of your customer. And I loved when you were talking about both of those things because you need to do both to be successful. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And I was wondering if there's anything else that you would maybe share with like a young marketer or someone who is just getting started and maybe they're struggling to try to really get some traction and they're just doing like tasks, but they're not able to actually get a strategy going.
What would I advise someone who's a one marketing team? I would definitely advise them to think impact before anything. And you can ask yourself, what value does this initiative that I'm going to take, how does that have value to our customers? That's the first one. Second, how does this initiative meet or align with our business goals, which could be awareness or new market penetration or increased revenue, you know? So, but I think impact before anything else, and just, shipping things all the time, I would rather advise them to focus on a few impactful initiatives, such as a really great ebook or a really, really great website where there's a crystal clear messaging, that resonates with the customers. So focusing, I would say, 70% of your energy on impact projects that you can milk. So when you make a huge, or not a huge, even like a really, really good ebook, then you can milk it. Then you can make a plan from that. Then you can recycle, you can repurpose, you can make SEO campaigns about it. You can make SEA campaigns about it, right? So I would advise them to, focus on impact, always be customer centric, always ask, how does this has value for our customers? So yes, that would be my advice to the one marketing team.
Yes.
I've been there myself, and I did all of the wrong things, shipping left and right, back and forth, and just being burned out by it, not being able to put a finger exactly on where I made impact. So when we take, the foot of the gas, then and take a step back and say, okay, what's the one piece or one project that would lead us to more awareness with our customers and be able to meet our revenue goals? That's always two questions you need to have in mind, instead of just being, the yes sayer to the CEO and be like, the more that I make, the better, because at least it's going to be visible. But if it's not impactful in terms of revenue, in terms of how it resonates with your customers, it has absolutely no value. No value.
I really like that, thinking about the high impact projects, because I can't remember where I heard this, but someone told me once, they're like, it's easy to make maybe like $10,000, but going from $10,000 to like your first million is a totally different game. So you got to think long term. How are you going to really drive revenue to your company? And it's not going to be with just a single blog post. Like, it's going to be with something that is bigger impact, like you were saying.
Exactly. And you need to start somewhere, right? You need to start somewhere, and then you build an orchestra. Or a machine, or whatever they want to call it, marketing machine. So so you need to start somewhere, and that somewhere is always with the customer first. It's always with the customer pain point. And it's also inwards with the company. What kind of company do we want to be? What are our values? How would we like to be perceived by our ideal buyers or customers?
Yeah.
So it's not just about the customer, it's also about, what are we bringing to the table, and then marinating those two. See if they stick together. Did our intentions have the impact that we wanted to have with the customers? So it's an ongoing process, obviously. So yes, you always start with the customer, obviously, and you start with your own brand as well. Then you test it, then you activate it across different channels once you have made the different types of content. But definitely, it always goes back to the customer.
Yes. So Sofie, I know we sent you kind of like a long agenda before this call, and we did not get to all of the questions. But is there anything that you specifically wanted to share that we didn't get to today?
I think, yes. So for B2B SaaS companies, I think one of the biggest roles that marketing has is to be able to translate this very product-led and this very sales-led culture that we have. And be able to extract the value from the products and yes, be more customer centric instead of being just focused on technicalities and features and launching I don't know how many product marketing campaigns without value. That's my advice to B2B marketers. And then another one, the final one that we didn't speak a lot about, it's to be able to say no. Be able to say no, because in B2B marketing, B2B SaaS notably, we do so much. We do too much, so being able to say no, and that's obviously an art. But again, go back to the customer. What value does this bring to the customer? You can even ask the CEO, great idea with this video. How would you describe this adding value to the customers? So yes, always having this interaction with the CEO around him being accountable, around being customer-centric and not product-centric.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to invite you back, and we'll do a class on the art of saying no, because I need that. So we'll do that next time, because I'm very interested, even though I feel like we did talk some about it, because even just like holding your boundaries, putting it back on them, making people choose between one of their ICPs. It's tough. And yeah, I need to take a page from your book for sure.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny though, because I've been called a bitch before behind closed doors. I had, because I said no.
It happened.
And we need to redefine the term of being a bitch. When you say no, it's not being a bitch. It's, setting boundaries. It's standing up for yourself. It's taking care of yourself. And it's actually doing what's best for the company. So
that's the thing. Yeah. You're actually doing what's best for the company.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You're so right. And it happens to women all the time that we can be perceived differently than men in the workplace. But I love doing this show, and I love that Baylee and I get to bring on the most amazing, powerful, marketing women. Up until this point, we've mostly had women on our show, and we've learned so much. And I just think that, it's really helpful to people listening, I hope. Because I know that, especially when I was a younger marketer, and even to this day, I struggle with those things, because I want to be liked, and I want my clients to think that I'm nice. But at the end of the day, that's not always what's best.
Exactly. It's not always what's best. And if you can't be your best version of yourself when you show up to work, well, it will show in your work, right? And I've been like you. I've been a pleaser most of my life. I wanted to fit in. And I'm also one of those people who think that I overestimate what I can do. So I just take it on and on and on and on. But that's also how you learn, that this is not the way you should be working, or yes, that you should be working, because in the end, it comes back to you, right? Where are the results? Why are there so many unfinished things?
Yes.
Why, can you give me an update on this campaign or this initiative or this analyst relationship? How's it going? If it's too much, then you become not credible, and then you lose confidence in yourself, and then it's just a vicious cycle, So the art of saying no is taking care of yourself first, but also the company that you're working for.
That's so good. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, and we really appreciate your time with us today. This has been so fun and so helpful. I know that I have learned a lot just in these 45 minutes of talking with you. Baylee and I always ask our guests one question at the end. So I'll ask you our famous question, which is, what is your biggest marketing ick? So what is the thing that you're you just don't like it when you see it? You see marketers doing it.
Yes. Oh, I have one. It's actually when ChatGPT came out. You probably heard it before, right? Probably heard it before. I think so many marketers have done that. So I didn't know shit about it. But I was like, oh, that's great. Let's make a quick ebook. We need some leads. So in we go. So 70% of that ebook was written by ChatGPT. 30% were optimized by a human. It needs to be reversed. So 30% is generated by ChatGPT. 70% has been edited, rewritten, and so on by a human being. It did do really well from a campaign standpoint, but the substance was not there. So that's why it's like a content ick for me, because it's not something that I'm proud of. And also we have to think about when the customer will read it, They might like the headline, they might like the structure and everything, but there needs to be substance for them to be able to remember you, and that's why it was a content egg for me. Huge one.
Agreed. I see so many like how to create your whole month's worth of content in an hour or 30 minutes or whatever. And it's just because people are using AI to write the whole thing. And I'm like,
Yes.
not good.
Yeah, I don't think it's a threat. AI is definitely not a threat. It's a threat if you don't know how to use it correctly.
Yeah.
That's when you will be out of business. But if you know how to use it correctly, meaning, using it to your advantage and not using it to replace you, but to, make you faster or more productive, then that's great.
Yeah. You're
But I
going to
think
be
we all
behind the
did that
times.
AI mistake in the start.
Yes. Yeah. You're going to be behind the times if you don't learn how to use it, but please don't use it for everything.
No. Oh, Jesus, no. No. But I would even say just one, and this is where AI can help with customer insights, actually. So let's say that you have made customer testimonials or customer interviews. You have a transcript of it, upload that transcript and ask AI to come up with what phrases came up around the problem, what phrases came up as pain points. Okay, they will be able to categorize that very, very quickly. There are tools out there as well for it, for customer interviews or for those types of field work. So this is actually where AI can help categorize, where you don't have to sit and be like, oh, I'm going to tag this with this color because it's like a feature that we're talking about. I'm going to tag theme because so it's much more, it's automated. So it's
It's good at analyzing data and pulling those insights.
I wouldn't say analyzing them and structuring them, categorizing them. Because you will be doing the analyzing. It's you with the experience. It's you with all of the legs out to everything that you know. AI will just help you categorize it so you can analyze it quicker.
Yeah.
Sofie, where can people find you, learn more about you, get in touch with you?
LinkedIn, first of all. Everyone can always reach out to me, young, old, semi-old marketeers. And then I also have a website, milkmoo.net. And yes, those are my two go-to channels.
That's awesome. Baylee and I can be found on LinkedIn as well. That's how we connected with you. I'm so glad that we connected and that we got to meet. And now we're friends. And I hope that we get to talk again soon. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, both of you. You have a great show. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Content Logistics.
If you enjoyed listening, you can follow Content Logistics wherever you get your favorite podcast.
Or access all episodes at marketersindemand.com. Bye.